Land and expand is critical to digital transformation at scale across verticals and in service of the digital supply chain. Take zero. All right, I apologize. No mic. I'm recording this on my Mac. I'm actually traveling to visit family post surgery, and so I am off in the middle of nowhere today. But those of you who who follow me on LinkedIn, we're going to go over a post here in a second. I did a post yesterday. Today is Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day, though. So I did a post yesterday on LinkedIn. One of the biggest challenges with the adoption of digital transformation for industry has been the effect that legacy software licensing models have had on the ability to build functional proofs of concept and prototypes without first purchasing licenses that you may or may not need in the end. An effective barrier to entry for many orgs. And what I mean here is that there are many organizations who don't start their journey because they are not sufficiently educated on the art of the possible. And the reason they're not educated on the art of the possible as it relates to Industry 4 is because of barriers to entry to the market. One of them being legacy licensing models, okay? I have long advocated for a land and expand model for software solutions in Industry 4. Land your software for free, and then expand after the proof of concept, paid licenses to scale the solutions. Another option is values-based licensing, where software vendors get paid based on the actual ROI of the solution for the end user. No matter which model you choose, it is imperative you focus on vendors who are looking to get their software in as many hands as possible for free and operate on a model that expects payment once value has been demonstrated and solutions are poised to go into production. This is a critical component of how I evaluate any software vendor. Now, I didn't pull this post out of my ass. This post was a direct response to two things. Number one, some observations that we've made. We actually did an analysis of digital transformation over the last 3 years in our organization. We looked at what are the things that we've learned talking to our customers, so specifically the clients we've been working with, but then the clients who reach out to us who want to work with us. And what are some of the observations we've made? And one of the observations that we've made is that we have discovered that more and more organizations that we are getting connected to have an IIoT platform installed in their facility somewhere that they have no license for. And they have been going through the process. Generally, this might be in an engineering group, process control group. It could be in the quality department. It could be in the lab. It could be in IT. But generally what we're seeing is more and more manufacturers, a very, very high percentage of them have a platform on board that it is the tool that they're using for every nail, okay? Here's a very common one, and we're going to use Ignition as the example here. Essentially, every single client that we talk to, not only do they know what Ignition is, but they've been using it. And about 50% of the new clients that we talk to, whether they reach out to us or whether we're getting connected to them indirectly, about 50% of them have not purchased the Ignition license yet. And the reason why is because they haven't used Ignition to create a production solution yet. So it's still in proof of concept or in proof of value. It may be, in some cases, it may be a solution that they're not using for the business, but they're still building political capital within the organization to make the investment in licensing. And here's a really common one. When they'll have Ignition, and they're ready to. They've built a couple of solutions. They're operating on a 2-hour license, and we come in and we design architecture, and we'll throw in a HiveMQ or EMQX broker externally. We will put in HiByte for data operations into the architecture. We'll put Canary Labs Historian into the architecture. And then immediately they will come back with, well, why can't I just do all of that in Ignition? And the answer is that in the beginning you can. In the beginning, you could do data ops. In the beginning, you can use Ignition's historian, although I would never recommend that for a host of technical reasons. You can get away with Ignition's historian. You can get away with using Ignition for data connectivity. But at scale, you want to be using software solutions that are best in class for those specific functions of your in your digital infrastructure. All right, so this post that I made, which was, hey, listen, if you're a software vendor, you need to have a land and expand model. I'm going to show you what land and expand is here in a second. In fact, I'm going to show it to you right now. Why is it what we are experiencing is, and why is it that the market has seen this, is that over time, everyone has Ignition. Like, everybody has downloaded it. And you know, depending upon who I talk to at Inductive Automation, when I ask them the percentage of downloads, unique downloads, so not downloads within a domain, but unique domain downloads versus paid licenses, it's like a 10-to-1 number. So 10% of the downloads, or 10% of the unique downloads, are paid licenses. But one of the things that I've been told multiple times at Inductive Automation is that they're able to operate with a very, very small sales force, because it is the stakeholders inside organizations that are selling the software. And how is it that they're doing that? Well, Inductive Automation is making it easy for users to download the software, install the software, and get started. At its base level, it's as easy as it gets. The UX, the user experience, is very intuitive at its base level. It's essentially it's left to right, top to bottom, drag and drop. Okay. They have Inductive University that you're able to sign up for without talking to anyone. You can download the software without talking to anyone. You can use it in a 2-hour license perpetually. You just keep resetting that license every 2 hours. And what's happening is internal stakeholders are becoming more and more fluent in the platform, and they're building solutions that are solving business problems. And then they're either reaching out to a partner of Inductive Automation, or they're reaching out to Inductive Automation directly to get licenses so they can put their solution in production. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, when I talk about land and expand, I'm going to show you what I mean. So what I've got here is I've got a server running in the cloud. I'm just going to go ahead. You know, the only thing I've installed on this machine is Chrome. All right, so if I want to download Ignition, okay, if I want to download Ignition, it looks like I need to fill out this form. But because I filled out this form a long time ago, I don't need to fill it out again. And you can notice there's a little link here, skip form and download directly right there. So right now what's happening is, in the cloud, Ignition is downloading. So if we take a look on our downloads, we're downloading Ignition 8.1.37. It's the Windows 64 installer. It's 1.6 gig. It's going to come down in 60 seconds. Once Ignition has been downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and install it. I'm going to launch it. I'm going to launch a gateway. All within a 3 to 5 minute window, I'll have Ignition up and running, and I'll be able to build some basic solution. Okay. This happens all the time. Like the average developer is downloading Ignition multiple times per week to some development server to test out some idea. Okay, so what we got is we got Ignition here. I'm going to go ahead and run the installer. Believe it or not, and we're not going to cut any of this. I'm going to show you exactly how easy it is to land Ignition inside of this organization. Okay, so assume that this server here is inside of my organization. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you just how easy it is to get Ignition installed. And now there are other platforms out there, but Ignition is the best, is the biggest example. Okay, so I'm just using all the defaults. So now it's going ahead and it's installing Ignition, and then it's going to launch the web interface, and then it'll prompt me for username and password, which I'll create. So Ignition's going to start up. And then I'll put in, once the web page starts, so the service is starting right now. This could be in my data center inside of my manufacturing facility. I haven't had to talk to anybody. In fact, no one in Inductive Automation even knows that I have downloaded this, because I skipped the form directly. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do standard edition. I'm going to go ahead and agree to the license. I'm going to put in admin. For instance, I'm going to nuke this. We'll just do admin password. It's going to be port 8088. And we'll go ahead and start our gateway. Now our service is starting. And you know, I can't stress enough how I want to challenge you to try and do this, where you don't have to. I didn't log into my Ignition account. I didn't talk to a salesperson. I didn't talk to a solutions engineer. Nothing about I didn't do anything about the pipeline, okay, at all. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and download the designer launcher. Okay, this is going to allow me to launch a designer on this local server. I'm going to go ahead and install it for all users. And we're at the 4-minute mark right now, I think. Okay, we'll go ahead and add a designer. That my designer should show up. And then I will just go ahead and launch this. Now, there's no project configured yet. This is a completely fresh installation. We didn't add any additional modules. This is all the base platform with SQL Bridge, et cetera, et cetera. All the stuff that gets you started building IIoT projects. All right, so I'm going to create a new project, and I'm just going to call it test, and we'll create it. It will not be inheritable. So that is, it's not a global project where I can take a global project and then I can create inherited instances of that project where I could put base templates and that kind of stuff in there. All right, so I'm running a designer right now, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new window. All right, I'm going to create it. And then I'm just going to go grab my tag browser and just quickly I will, let's go to our system tags. We'll go to the gateway. And then what we'll do is we'll just drop some stuff on a screen. Okay, we'll just do label. And we'll drop our license state on here. And we'll go ahead and drop the system name on there. All right, so at its base level, Ignition is that easy. Okay, now we're not connected to any PLCs, which we could do that through the gateway homepage. But what I've done is in a 6-minute process, okay, let's say I had an OPC server out there, I could literally connect to a KEP server, OPC server, by going back here and going to config. It'll ask me to log in. And then I would go down to OPC and I would go to server settings. Oh, actually, sorry. Go to OPC UA connections, and I could connect to my KEP server. And then when I went back to my designer, I could just browse, drag, go to default, our default browser, and then I could browse our OPC servers. I could take all the tags, drop them in here, and I could drop them on the screen, and I could be doing that in 6 minutes. By the way, this costs nothing. No one knows I downloaded it. Every 2 hours, it's going to reset. I could build a functional proof of concept by just landing the software. Moreover, this software could be landed in multiple places within an organization where you have citizen developers using this platform, this tool, to solve business problems. And then they take the thing that they've built using this platform and they take it to management and they say, do you want this? The Steve Jobs philosophy of business development and sales. All right, so that is land. Expand is when you are ready to go into production, you reach out to the vendor and you get your license. You pay for your licenses. Now, let me just say that I'm not going to go over all the comments in here, but I am going to go over a couple of them, okay? Interestingly, there were basically two schools of thought in this thread. School of thought number one was and it came from software vendors, and it came from investors of software vendors, and it came from people who had a vested interest. They sold their own software. Their position was no, free licensing bad. I think there was a miscommunication on what free is. Land means no financial investment in the software, zero touch, low barrier to entry, like inductive automation does it. Inductive automation is not the only platform that does it. But if you are wondering why software vendors are having trouble scaling, it's because they are not using the model that works. Okay. And there's a bunch of reasons there. You may have the board of directors the operations manager may sit there and say, we can't just give this software to anyone without training them on how to use it. Well, if that's the case, then you have a UX problem. That is, you developed your platform in a way where you never took into consideration the need for an intuitive user experience at its base level. Ignition, if you want to build the most complex solutions in the world, you need training. But at its base level, you can get started intuitively. Okay, you need a 10-minute walkthrough to get started. And you can find that on YouTube. You can find it in lots of different places. So there was two schools of thought in my thread. Number one, bad. And number two, all the end users agreed. Okay, so if you want to, this LinkedIn post will be linked in the description down below. But so many people, all the end users agreed. And anybody who was invested with software disagreed. And the reason why is because they want the contact with that client so that they can control the outcome. And I'm saying that if that's what you want, there's something wrong with the platform you built. But let's go ahead and run through Luke Small, because I'm going to touch on a post he posted today, and then we'll get out of here. Land and expand is critical, by the way, is the message here. So Luke says that he disagrees. There's no easy button for adoption in our world. In my experience, free just delays the hard value-based conversation you need to drive at the plant level ASAP in the sales and adoption cycle. Digital transformation starts with education. You're not going to sell licenses to an organization before you educate them. And if you believe that all education is going to take place by some salesperson from your OEM, you're a fool. The vast majority, and I'm not saying Luke's a fool. What I'm saying here is that people are self-educating. They're going to YouTube for their education. They're going to Reddit for their education. They're going to Medium for their education. They're going to OEM's websites for their education. And if you go to Inductive Automation's website and look at their user experience and their go-to-market strategy, and then compare it to the vast majority of IIoT platform vendors, they are night and fucking day. And inductive automation is killing the market, literally murdering the market. They're murdering the market so much that they have acquisition requests every day. Huge venture capital groups are offering enormous sums of money to acquire inductive automation. And it is only through Steve Heckman's vision and the way that he did his transition plan, the way the new board, they're very restricted on a sale, okay? Only through Steve Heckman's commitment to not allowing inductive automation's vision to be corrupted is inductive automation still a independent organization, okay? So free typically feeds POC purgatory versus overcoming it because you have not gotten the complex multi-staker buy-in up front. No, digital transformation maturity assessment is what gets you the multi-staker buy-in up front. You should have a proof of concept in place. That is a proof of value, a proof of concept developed by some citizen developer. We call them the key stakeholder, the true believer internally, who is using some platform to do some basic prototype or POC, and you're taking that, you're through the digital transformation maturity assessment process, and you are showing it to the organization. But that citizen developer didn't pay anything for that license, hence land. Okay? He says, that's why I advise startups in our world to ask, do you want to play with our software? Do you not believe our tech will work in your plant? Are you concerned about the solution delivering the value, or do you want to get serious about having impact on one line? That's all just sales jargon. Now, literally what he said right there, that is a sales message. That doesn't say anything about value. It doesn't say anything about how your software works. It doesn't say anything about how CI/CD works in a digitally transformed organization. Newsflash: Tesla doesn't outsource their software or their engineering to vendors. They use vendors, but they do not outsource the ownership of their infrastructure to vendors. They use citizen developers to continue to expand their infrastructure. They're all very fluent in the infrastructure and the software used in the infrastructure. Okay. All right. So, obviously Luke and I disagree here. I'll also point here that I think Luke definitely takes a top-down approach to selling digital transformation. He's operating under the assumption, he'll talk about those who are serious about digital transformation. All manufacturers are serious about value, about becoming more efficient. What he means is he's only working with the organizations who are ready to spend money. That's what he means. Okay, that's what this language here is. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let's see what the comments were. That's another critical. Christine says that most manufacturers, she says, don't have the time or budget to manage a host of software. Most of them use the software once in the beginning and then set it and forget it. No, that's the old way of thinking. That is not the way that digitally transformed organizations. If you go and look at our largest life sciences customer, okay, if you look at our largest life sciences customer, okay, and they've gone all over the world and they're speaking to the FDA about unified namespace and digital transformation, how it really can work in life sciences. If you look at our largest life sciences customer, in terms of the largest engagement, they have an entire team of people, 16, 17, 18 people that are a subset of their IT group who are all, during the first 6 months of the engagement, were gaining fluency on the software stack that was being implemented for their infrastructure, including Ignition. Okay. What I said to Luke was, Luke, if you're a software vendor and you have no model for landing your software in the hands of as many of your potential customers as possible, without them being qualified and vetted and added to the CRM and led by a solutions engineer, then one is a software vendor on the path to death. Software is a tool like a hammer. Put that tool in as many hands as possible, and every problem becomes a nail. The client will prove the tool works and gain fluency doing so. GE, Rockwell, Wonderware, Schneider have all been passed by inductive automation in the IoT platform space, and this is exactly how they did it. By the way, Luke is a former GE guy. Software vendors who hide behind paywalls, strategic partnerships, hand-holding POCs, and convoluted pricing are vendors who have to control the POC in order to control the message. And that is exactly how clients get stuck with software licenses they don't need for solutions that don't work or scale. And then, he goes back, can we move past the legacy vendor conversation? And I said, no. He said, it's 2018, blah, blah, blah. He said, I said, no, Luke, we can't move past that conversation or this contrast yet. I'm neither annoyed nor any other emotion. This is an observation that's driving our growth, 40, 52, 64, 80% the last 4 years. 2 of the 3 big cloud vendors have gone back to the drawing board. 2 of the MQTT broker providers have fundamentally shifted their go-to-market strategy, and the legacy vendors continue to lose market share year over year in IoT, which means we should still be having this discussion. Also, he talks about a seasoned customer. Up here, he says, same go for seasoned customers. I go, what is a seasoned customer? Digital transformation is a strategy for solving problems on one infrastructure. It isn't akin to scaling operations to economies of scale. I think the fundamental issue I have with most of the arguments that Luke is making is that he's really approaching digital transformation, that is the automation of business processes by the coalescence and leveraging of data that they're generating every day but aren't listening to, is that this isn't a journey or a strategy that continues. Like the people who are objecting to what I'm saying are saying, no, we don't want to put the software in the hands of the customers. We want to put the software in the hands of the experts and have the experts control the message. Okay. He said, Walker, you are running a massively successful SI. I'm not actually running it. I own it. Other people run it. Reaping the rewards of an arguably once-in-a-lifetime product-led growth strategy for a now incumbent technology vendor. More power to you. But what got us here is not going to get us to where we need to go. especially since the very model that got inductive to this point is what startups are now disrupting. No, that simply isn't true. The market let's look at Litmus. I like Litmus quite a bit. From a technology perspective, I've had this conversation about Litmus many times. I do not think that, I think Litmus creates very high barriers to entry for their customers, and it causes problems. And I think the reason they create very high barriers to entry for their clients is because Litmus is very involved in the journeys of their customers. And that is simply not scalable. Okay, it simply isn't scalable. If what Luke is talking about applies, let's say what Luke is saying here is that new startups are disrupting. I would argue they're not. What I'm arguing that there are startups. Let's use HighBite as an example. Everybody knows I love HighBite. I love the platform, but the model for HighBite right now, the go-to-market strategy for HighBite today in 2023 is very similar to what the go-to-market strategy was for Kepware in 2004 and 5, 2003, 4, and 5. And that is a problem. One of the weaknesses of the HighBite platform is it is very weak in user experience. It is very hard for a user who's using the HighBite platform to visualize how models and pipelines and flows, how they all work together. It's hard to visualize that. Okay. You have to be able to see it in your head and know, okay, I have this connection has these inputs and these outputs. I'm going to go ahead and use this input. I'm going to create this model, and then I'm going to use these inputs and these outputs based on this trigger for this model, and I'm going to create this pipeline. But you have to visualize it in your head. The user experience there's a fairly large learning curve if you want to get the most out of the HighBite platform. Well, why? Because the assumption was, when HighBite was being developed, was that they would teach the integrators how to use it, and then the integrators would install it for the customers. Guess what? The customers aren't doing that. That's not the go-to-market strategy. Customers are downloading Ignition because they can. They have Ignition on site. They haven't talked to anyone about it. They built their own solution. They get to a point where they're ready to get help. They've realized some value. They're fluent in the software. And now what they're doing is they're reaching out to an integrator partner. And the beauty is that those Ignition, these end users who have gained fluency with Ignition, they are fluent enough to recognize bullshitters. And this is a challenge for a lot of integrators. Okay. All right. Let's go to Luke's post. He did a follow-up post, okay, today. And let's go to that, and then I want to ask you guys a question here at the end. So free software hurts everyone, he says. After 10 years implementing industry tech, another 10 years taking it to market, and the last 5 years helping startups, including my own, get to market in our space, I can tell you go-to-market has changed. Obviously, we've moved past the perpetual monolith era, and customers have seen some promise with SaaS-based IoT or Industry 4, in quotes, since it's tech and not a solution, which is part of the issue. By the way, digital transformation infrastructure is tech-centric, not solution-centric. But when you talk to manufacturing customers, they have one common issue: value. Of course, that's all the customer has ever been focused on. Okay, that's nothing new. That's not groundbreaking, and it didn't change over the last 25 years. He said they are burnt out with the promise Industry 4, digital transformation, and every hype-based acronym that sits underneath it. Agreed. I agree 100%. This is why the digital transformation maturity assessment is so important. That education of what Industry 4 is, what digital transformation is. Digital transformation is the process of going from the third industrial revolution, the automation of industrial processes, the equipment, to the fourth industrial revolution, which is the automation of business decisions. And how do you do that? You take the data on the plant floor generated by that technology that was invented during the third industrial revolution, and you merge it with the new IT infrastructure that took place in the 90s when TCP/IP won the protocol wars in the late 1990s. So now what you've got is IT infrastructure, OT infrastructure. When you hear IT, OT convergence, it means connect them together, don't bifurcate them. collect the data, and then use tools that have been generated during the fourth industrial revolution, primarily things like data lakes, data warehouses, machine learning algorithms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to transform your data into information, stuff that you can take action on. And then using human beings to look at those values and look at those trends and make decisions, but also to use algorithms to identify patterns in that data we can't see with the naked eye. That's not a buzzword. That's actually how it works. But obviously it took me 90 seconds to say that. It's much easier to say Industry 4 and digital transformation. He said, not to mention every incumbent vendor poking up and down the stack, trying to disrupt Purdue by becoming the next monolith. Agreed. So when I see folks promoting free software as a solution, sorry, Walker, I pick on you with love and respect, I get super emotional. I am not promoting free software. I am promoting a land and expand model that gets your software in as many hands as humanly possible before those clients pay for the software. Because customers that are asking for a free pilot are actually saying, I don't yet see or believe in the value of a solution. I don't know of any clients who are asking for a free pilot. There's a huge difference between finding a way to get that tool into their tool belt, okay? So that when they see the nail that they got to hammer with that specific tool, the tool's already there and they're fluent in how to use it. There's a huge difference between that and them saying, hey, listen, Mr. Contractor, I want you to come here and build this thing from scratch for free. Okay. Understandable based on our track record as vendors. Agreed. That's where modern go-to-market comes into play, not free licenses. I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree that you must land your software in as many hands as possible. Inductive automation has shown you how this is done. How many times do you have to talk to someone who downloaded inductive automation without talking to anyone, became fluent in the software, solved some problem, by the way, sometimes in a very novel way, which transforms the industry? How many times do you have to see that before you believe, holy shit, citizen development in CI/CD and in proof of concept is fucking critical to the success of manufacturing in any market, okay? So if you're suffering from free pilot purgatory and your gut is telling you it's killing your CAC, we should talk. DM me to learn more, jump in the comments, and we can chat. I mean, that's actually a sales. I would never do this. We should talk, DM me. By the way, I would argue, I would never say that in one of my posts. The reason why is I already have too many people reaching out to me. The last thing I need is a call to action for more people to reach out and ask me to do their project. I mean, our biggest fucking problem in my organizations is how do we handle everyone? That's the biggest problem. I mean, the biggest problem is how do we decide who to work with and who not to work with? Okay. I just want to say, I'll give you my comment here. I said land and expand does not mean software is free. It means that clients do not pay for software licenses until they have fluency and they see value. My point is simple. If you are a software vendor and you don't have a plan to get your software into as many of your potential clients as possible without them having to go through the sales process and capitalize licensing costs before they have fluency with your software and can demonstrate value with your tool, then you're doing something wrong. Luke and I are 100% in agreement on showing value first. We just disagree on what free is. And let me qualify this. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Luke. This is a professional disagreement. I think Luke is very good at what he does. We have mutual respect for one another. We disagree, and part of it is we're speaking a different language about, we're disagreeing on what free is, and I'm talking about land and expand, and he's talking about free pilots. But free software does not hurt everyone. What I mean is what I showed you earlier. This, downloading Ignition and for free without having to talk to anyone, and connecting it to an OPC server and throwing some values on a screen so that I can, and maybe those are values that management has never seen coalesce together. And if we were going to do that in Factory Talk, we'd have to have the client license, and we'd have to know how to build the visualization. Anybody can fucking drag and drop a value onto a screen. So you can take this and you can literally say to management, do you want this? Yes, great. I need $25,000 for a license plus 18% per year. And the sale happened from the citizen developer. Okay. All right. With that, let me ask you this question. Please comment down below, okay, on do you agree with the statement that land and expand is a model all software vendors must have? Land and expand is critical to developing novel concepts using common software platforms in service of digital transformation for manufacturing. I mean, it's no secret that the software that's growing the fastest is the software that vendors are getting into the hands of as many people as humanly possible. And they're doing it with low barrier to entry. How fucking easier does it get than what I just showed you with Ignition? All right, with that, like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.